Jon is a healer amongst men. And I really get that. I feel like after I read the book, there was a lot of healing in my heart. And also I know there's been healing as a result. So Jon, I'm pumped that you're here. I'm excited for this conversation. And I want to share a win with you to get things rolling right now. So this morning I had in my schedule podcast prep, which would have just meant, hey, take a couple more, glances at your videos and, read over your bio a couple. That's usually what that means, right? To prepare for my guest.
Yeah.
And as I was looking at my calendar and then I heard my son in the next room over, I thought, what the best prep I could have this morning for this podcast would be is to take my son on an adventure. And I said, That's how I'm going to prepare for this podcast. So dude, I went out front because of you. I went out front. I posted this picture on my social media this morning. He and I jumped on our bikes and we rode. And here's the game we played. You're going to love this, Jon. I said, every traffic light or stop sign or crosswalk that we come up to, about 20 or 30 feet before that crosswalk, I want you to just start saying left, right, or straight slowly. And whenever you pass this, get to the stop sign, whatever word you're on is the direction we're going to go. We're going to go on an adventure. But the whole thing was filtered on, we're going to take an adventure. We don't know where we're going. We're just going to see what awaits us ahead. And we ended up on these trails where there was mud and we got mud. It was muddy. It was fun. And on the way back, Tiger said to me, he said, this was a great morning. He said, this was a great morning. He goes, I woke up, I read, and then we went for this bike ride. And it just had this sense of, this sense of confidence, this sense of connection to nature, this sense of, I'm an 11-year-old boy who's ready to take on the day. And that is the type of influence. And I also feel that there was a moment when we were on our bikes and I said to Tiger, I go, isn't this so much better than like sitting indoors and getting into a fight with somebody in our house? Like we're just two dudes out on the trail on our bikes. Like this is so good for the soul. And there was healing happening in that moment with our relationship. There was healing happening in his heart. And that is largely due to the influence of you in our lives, Jon. And I want to share that with you as a testament to your work, as that is the introduction I wanted to give you today. Not the standard, I'm going to read your bio, but like that's the impact you're having on the Vromans.
That's beautiful. I mean, we could just wrap the show up. We just say, do that.
But we're
guys.
not, man, because we have a lot to talk about.
A
lot to talk about. Thank you, man. And on that note, let's celebrate one of your adventures, man. What have you done in the last 6 to 12 months? What adventures have you taken that have really healed or lit up your heart in unique ways?
Yeah. So my rescue during the pandemic last year was to build a fly fishing raft and an NRS Otter 130 with the fishing frame and the rowing seat. And the fly guy stands in the front, guy in the back. And then a couple of weeks ago, two pals of mine, we went out to the Green River in Utah and floated for a couple of days and fished and camped. And it was so life-giving. It was so good. We didn't crush it on the fish, but it wasn't about that. It was like a couple of pals on a river all day long.
Yeah.
Just drinking that in. And it was really good.
Do you find, just talk about cadence. I think rhythm is a word that would resonate with you, right? As these rhythms.
Yeah, big time.
What rhythm do you need when it comes to outdoor adventure connection with your family or other men? How often and for how long?
You got to divide it up into the daily, because there's got to be a daily. I have to at least take a walk outside. And I'll do this in the middle of the day at work and it cracks my staff up. I'll just get up and walk out of the building and I do laps around the building.
Yeah.
Because I need to get out of technology and Zoom and meetings and all that stuff. Get off email. So I walk, daily, there's the daily, and it could be 5 minutes, 30 minutes, right? And then there's the weekly, which is the hike, the bike ride, something weekly. But then like the bigger adventure stuff, that's a couple times a year, trying to fit that in. There's a fishing trip, there's a bow hunting trip, there's something probably quarterly, if I really am honest about kind of think through. About every 3 months, I find myself really needing restoration. And even if it's just a day, it doesn't need to be big overnight thing. But yeah, those rhythms of beauty, rhythms of a soul's pace are really, really big for me.
Yeah. Do you plan them always in advance where you're like, hey, I'm planning 3-6 months out? Or do you kind of wait till your heart is saying, now is the time, you got to go?
Right. I plan a couple of them, because like in the bow hunting season, you got to put in for your tags and stuff like that. But I'm embarrassed to say, mostly it's when my soul is screaming at me. Like I've run too hard, too fast. And I just realize I am not well. And then I'm like, okay, I gotta, quick, rearrange the schedule, cancel a few things, go get on the river.
Do you think, matters of the heart, which is really at the core here, right? That's that's the thing, right? It's matters of the heart. My sense is that when I look back over the last 10 years of my life, the decade or two, you could say, that the world has gotten so good at listening in some ways to each other. And here's what I mean by that. Not real listening, but being distracted by each other. This social media, just knowing in any given moment, you could wake up and for the first time, right, in modern day, you could know what's happening in the lives of 300 people around you in an instant, within minutes, right, of scrolling a feed, you could get a read. We're getting really good at knowing what everybody else is thinking and feeling. And we're very interested in being like in the know. The fear of missing out is very real, of like, oh, did you see that video going viral? It's like, oh, I must be so out of the loop, right? Whatever it might be. And I've noticed that the things that have really stood out to me are now the principles that bring me back to understanding, what am I saying internally? What do I think? What do I care about? What is my inner guidance system saying? And that I need more training with that, the better the world gets at telling me what they think, right? And so books like Essentialism by Greg McKeown was really powerful. Book like The One Thing, that just, right, by Jay Papasan and Gary Keller, that gets you focused and honed in on something. Books that bring you into, or anything that brings you, like you just said, to a 1-minute pause. All of a sudden, people, if they just cut out all the noise, they are like, oh, I have this internal wisdom. I have this universal, right? Or depending on your beliefs, this God from within, or this connection to a spirit, right? That's a guidance system that's there, that we just drown out with all the noises around us, right? So when it comes to matters of the heart, how much is being in community and seeing it from other people's perspectives, counseling, mentorship, etc., modeling of others, and how much of it is just taking a walk into nature by yourself? Where have you found that balance to be? Or how can a man look at that, the benefits of both and the balance of both?
Hey guys, I want to share something brand new designed for high-performing men like you who want to win at home, not just at work. Our team developed this program over the past 8 years by collecting the best ideas, strategies, and habits from hundreds of men. It's all in one place to give you the best results in the shortest amount of time, because if you're a married man with kids and a business, there is no time to waste. This experience creates deep transformation, not just taking notes and talking about change. It's about doing what matters now so you don't miss the moments when your kids need you the most. These opportunities will come and go very quickly. It's also about building a marriage that shows your kids what real love looks like, creating an environment where they and you thrive. Look, marriage is tough. I've personally walked the line of divorce several times, and without the tools I've gained from this community, I might not be married today. And it's not just about being a great dad or a husband. It's about fulfilling your personal mission, thriving as a man, making an impact through your work, gaining time freedom, financial freedom, traveling the world, and giving to the causes you care about. This program is designed to keep you mentally, physically, and spiritually strong. You do not need to do this alone. Our badass community of intentional fathers are going to help you raise the bar. You're going to learn from each other, hold each other accountable, find your blind spots, and achieve success most dads will never see. It's time to dig deep, gain clarity, and create real change starting now. If you're ready to evolve, visit frontrowdads.com today. We've got limited spots available for this brand new program.
There's so many ways to come at that. Let's think of it as 3 stages. There's detox, there's healing, and then there's wholeheartedness, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're all on that journey, and at different times in our week and at different times in our lives, we need a little bit more of one than the other. Like the 20-minute walk in the woods that actually lowers your cortisol levels, guys, is your detox. Like I'm fried at the end of my day. I'm fried at the end of my week. I need detox, but that's not the same thing as the restoration of your soul. And that requires a little bit more, I think, community. I think sharing your story, sharing where you're at, getting some loving counsel, just someone listening in kindness to your story is healing. Just that alone. And then we're in this journey towards wholeheartedness. And we've just got to admit, we are in love with distraction. Like it's not just addictive, the whole, scrolling thing and click and all that, and, the dopamine hits and stuff. Like, we love distraction because we don't have to deal with our inner world. And if I can just stay distracted in really cool stuff, and I'm up to date on the BBC's news feed and yada, yada, but it's a false sense of settledness. It's a false sense of being in tune because you're out of tune with your own self. And so we just got to kind of confess this. Like, we actually love distraction because it keeps us from facing some of the more difficult things inside.
Yeah. I learned that mostly this last year. I feel like I've been learning that for a couple decades, but this last year, John, my core community here in Austin really got into the Enneagram, which has kind of cycled in and out of our communities for again, decades, but really got into it as a core group. And I realized as a 7 that I create distractions and adventures and all these things many times to not feel my feelings. Right. So I'll go run a marathon or train for a marathon or do whatever I'm going to do with the disguise of I'm going to better my life, but really I'm also running away from just sitting and feeling the pain, the trauma, the discomfort, whatever it is I want to avoid in my life. I'm running towards a goal and secretly running away from something I don't want to face.
Right. And it gives us a sense of accomplishment, but it's not the same thing as wholeheartedness. It's not the same thing as internal restoration. And most guys, if I could just give you like a couple categories, we're chasing love and validation, belovedness and validation. It's the core needs of a boy with his dad. What's your Tiger?
Tiger is my 11-year-old. Yeah.
I love that. My dad, that was my nickname. My dad.
Oh, is that right?
Tiger. Cool. Yeah. So what Tiger got this morning was love and validation.
Yeah.
It was your delight. I want to be with you. Like, that message is just golden. I want to be with you. That's belovedness. But then it's also, you can do this, pal. Like, you got what it takes. There was tons of validation in it. You can handle the mud. You can handle the craziness of this adventure. And then he came back with a sense of love and validation.
Yeah.
And if we're not aware, again, internally aware of where we are chasing love and validation, it's going to start ruling. It starts driving the bus. And so the marathon, the promotion, we're not aware of what's compelling us.
Right.
And then it sort of takes over because it gives you it's the whole pornography thing. It's about love and validation. It's really not about sex. If we're not aware, tuned in, dialed in to what our heart is seeking, then we get caught up in stuff that burns us out.
When did you realize in your life that you had what it takes?
So everybody's got a story, and it's really important to know a man. You have to know his story. So I grew up in an alcoholic home, and my dad really blew the family up. He was a good guy. We loved to fish together, but then he just got taken out, and it was a number of career setbacks and a pretty tough marriage, to be honest. He married a very difficult woman, and he just started drinking. And and it took him out to sea. But my rescue was my grandfather. My grandfather was a cattle rancher in Eastern Oregon, and I would get sent to his ranch every summer because I was a really wild kid and they didn't know what to do with me. So they would just send me. But it was a rescue because I was beloved to him. Like, he loved me. And then all kinds of validation. Like, he would put me on a tractor and say, hey, go like plow that field. And I've never driven a tractor. He was really smart. He knew what he was doing. He would say, saddle that horse. We're going to go ride. And I'd be terrified, but the validation that came through it.
Very cool.
You have what it takes. I got some of that, but it really wasn't until my adult years, the anger, the drivenness, the fear, waking up to fear in the night, that I realized, whoa, I have some unresolved things inside. And I actually went and saw a counselor. It was life-changing for me. It was absolutely life-changing. And that began the journey really in my 30s of kind of getting straightened out on where am I chasing love and validation? Where does that come from?
What did that counselor help you with?
Oh, man. Well, first, the father wound, right? Because the little boy first looks to dad for that. Now, then there's grandpa and there's teachers and coaches, and mom plays a huge role, but the boy looks to dad for love and validation. And so you have to start with, how did that go? What was your dad's message to you? Were you beloved? And the problem was, because he checked out through his alcoholism, I didn't have an answer. I don't know that I have what it takes. So I became very driven to prove it. I was a 4.0 student. I was over the top achiever, but it wasn't coming out of a place of settledness. It wasn't from an internal strength. It was a desperation to prove that I had what it takes, and a fear of exposure, that one day the whole world is going to discover that I don't, that I'm faking it, right? And so that's where the counselor went. He went straight after that stuff. And it's actually a beautiful story. We ended up becoming very good friends. And we wrote my first book, I wrote with him together, and we fished and backpacked and stuff. He kind of broke all the professional protocols because we ended up becoming very close pals. And
Wild at Heart, because after 2 decades now, there's a new expanded edition. Yeah. And as I heard you and Ryan talking about that, there were some core elements that for sure are timeless, but there's also some modern day issues that you wanted to bring to light, right? Maybe update some of the language. Talk to us about what was at the core that you're like, this can never leave, that 10%, the top 10%. And what's the top 10% of the new information that you just knew you had to get in there?
The core is, you have a heart. It's a masculine heart. It's uniquely masculine. And you need a battle to fight. You need an adventure to live, and you need a woman to love. And like, just talking about those things, battle, adventure, love, the power of beauty, that's core. That never goes away. And that's, you cannot make a best-selling movie for men without those 3 ingredients. Mm-hmm. Like, you just can't. Video games, like, you could go look this up, guys. Like, look at your favorite movies. He's got a battle, he's got an adventure, and there's love and beauty in there. And then the newer stuff has to do with the hostility towards gender, and how we're not looking for a fight here. We're looking for healing. We want to see people get wholehearted. And so trying to offer some direction in that, like, how do you navigate the current, climate, screen time, and all of that's taken out. I wrote this before the iPhone, right? And I wrote in 2001, iPhone comes out in 2007, and that's changed everybody's life. Like, it's insane. Sure. I started my work career, there wasn't email. And guys can't even imagine that now, but we lived a whole different pace of life because it just simply wasn't possible. There's too much that's possible now. So how do you regulate that? How do you live with healthy rhythm? But particularly parenting. I think the core things in there on raising boys, because they're facing such a different world than we all faced when we grew up, and the screen time and the sexual stuff and all that. Like, how do you raise healthy sons in an environment like this? That's kind of the top 10% of the new stuff.
What age do you think it's healthy for a boy to listen or read your book, the new book?
Yeah, probably adolescents, probably around 13, 14, 15. And a lot of dads will do it with their sons.
Sure.
And just talk through some of the issues. I talk about a lot of films in the book. So like use the films, like watch, you watch Braveheart together. You watch Legend of Bagger Vance and how he lost his heart and got it back. You watch the films and talk about it.
That's so cool.
With your sons, it really opens up good dialogue. And then here's the cool thing is that in their movie, go to their favorite movies, go to their video games, and you'll see it. This is inescapable. It's all ages, all through time, all around the world. These core things of the warrior heart, the need for adventure, loving a woman, like this is just core stuff.
Yeah. Jon, one of the things I was really excited to talk about today is this, I'll call it a battle to honor the term, right? That we just said. It's like, there's a battle in my mind over the word battle. And I'm sure that I'm not the first one to bring this conversation to you. So apologies if this is like, beat into the ground in you talking about this for the last 20 years, but I have yet to come to a clear belief around peacefulness and battling. And, I'll give you a couple of examples because I really want to hear what you have to say, but I want to make sure that I give the right context for this question of what I'm asking. So I want to give a little backstory to why I'm asking this question. So I grew up with a father who was a Navy captain, right? So interestingly, like in our military and fighting for our freedom, but also a very peaceful man, a man who, when I was beating crabs with a stick down by the river because I thought it was fun, grounded me because we don't kill animals without a purpose, right? Like we eat meat and we fish, but even my dad, I remember having a challenge with like fishing just to fish, sport fishing, like hooking a fish just for fun, happy to hook a fish to feed my family. A little bit more difficult of a time hooking a fish just because it's fun to do that. And I remember all through my childhood and even into my adulthood, wrestling, battling, whatever word, with the difference of where is this warrior inside me that I want to nurture, that I know is primal. I know that has a hunter in him, right? That if you look at history, you've likely had to defend your family. There needs to be a part of you that is able to defend and hunt and provide in whatever way that you want. And things often feel like a battle, and battles can be fun. You can have a Nerf gun battle and it can be fun. And I also, where I step over that line is where if you take on the identity too much of the warrior, then the answer is always, well, we're going to go to war with that. Oh, you don't wear a mask. I wear a mask. We're going to go to war. You're a vaxxer. I'm an anti-vaxxer. We're going to go to war. Like everything is like, it's time to fight. And I go, I don't know that that's always the answer, right? Like it's time to, I believe in standing up for your rights, but I also really appreciate people that have made progress peacefully. A Gandhi as an example of that peaceful protest and what that can do when you rally people in their hearts to take a stand for what they want, modeling more of what you want than the confrontational, which gets a lot of attention online. Like all you have to do is start a podcast and be like, fuck that guy and fuck the, like, if you just really want to rile people up, you can get people on your team very quickly through that fighter mentality. So I don't want to set too much of the context to just give you a chance to respond, but I know you know where I'm going with this now, but that's what I genuinely wrestle, because people come to me about front row dads and say, it's not edgy enough, right? Like it's gotta be more masculine. It's gotta be more like dads that fight, or something like that. I'm like, hey man, I want competent men who, could defend their family. No problem with all of our men being jujitsu experts or hunters or whatever. But I also appreciate the philosophy of front row dads, getting close to people, places, thoughts, and things that make you come alive, lifting others up. Like there's a softness and a hardness I both want to have as part of my life. So talk to us about that.
There's a lot to that question.
We'll see you at the end of the show, Jon. 20 minutes. It's all yours. Take it away.
No, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful question, and it's a really important one. So let me just start throwing some thoughts out.
Right.
The ancient Hebrew proverb that greater is he who masters himself than he who takes a city. Okay. So the warrior is strength that is under control. The warrior is also strength on behalf of others. And that really defines things super quick. Like, yeah, you want to fight, you want to make a big deal of this, that, or the other thing. Why? Who's this for? Is this about you? Or is this about others? Just about everything you want in this life requires some kind of fight. Like, you want to finish high school? You want to finish college? You want to go to grad school? Holy cow, that takes a lot of fight in you to press through hard things, right? You want to love? Well, that takes a lot of courage. You know, when you walk in the door and your wife is pissed and she says, we need to talk. At that point, most guys check out internally. They just go dive, 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 and they're gone. Like, they may stay in the room, but it takes courage to love. It takes courage to be a parent. It takes courage to pursue your dreams. Courage is essential to masculinity. It's absolutely essential. And courage expresses itself in a ton of ways. You don't need to be a hunter. You don't need to work on motorcycles. You don't need to race motorcycles, like, to be a real man, you know. But you do have to be aware of courage in your life and where your battles are. And wisdom is to know how to pick your battles well, right? So right now, we live in an incendiary culture. It's incendiary. Like, everything's volatile. Everything is volatile. And part of it has to do with the sociology and the politics of our day, but part of it actually has to do with the pandemic. We've all just been through global trauma, and everybody has like a low-grade PTSD from it. And one of the things you do is you get pissed. And so, like, greater is he who masters himself. Like, why am I fried right now? Why do I want to fire this email back? I want to just roast this person. Why do I want to get online and just cook this person? Like, why? And is that in the service of love? Is that in the service of love? So, like, 9/11, Twin Towers are on fire. There were a small group of men, firefighters, who ran up the stairs while everybody else was running down. Okay. That takes a lot of warrior to do that, but it was in the service of others. It was in the service of love. Does that help?
Yeah, it's great. You know, sometimes when you're in the middle of a show, Jon, you're in the middle of an interview and you're like, this one's going to live on for a long time. I have the sense about this conversation of how important this is for me, and I'm imagining many others. So no, that took, and you know that you're also a skilled communicator, Jon, when it took longer for me to set up the question than it did for you to answer it. See, that's why you're my mentor, Jon.
Well, and the thing is, though, we could unpack that for a long time, right? Because there is, so our prisons are not filled with young women, okay? They're not. They're filled with young men. And almost to a man, they are fatherless young men. So young men create the majority of violent crimes in the world, domestic violence in the world, terrorism in the world. So yes, like, there's an issue here of how do we shape aggression in men into healthy ways? And a lot of the world has come to the conclusion, well, we just take it away, right? We just don't want men to, like, aggression is wrong. You go, whoa, hang on. Like, your house is on fire. You want some aggression. Like, you need to, like, get people out of that building. You need to grab a garden hose and do what you can. Yeah, man, there's a lot. You're in a board meeting and somebody's about to tank the company with a really unethical decision. That's going to take some serious aggression and courage to stand up and go, I think this is a really bad idea. Can I tell you why? Like, that's unethical. So we don't want to take aggression away. We want to harness it for the good of the community. And that's what initiation rituals all through the centuries did for boys, except for our century, our era, is you don't take the warrior away, you teach the warrior you are in the service
That's right.
of the community.
We just had an event last week, 45 men, 3 days, deep dive, conscious conversations, open, vulnerable, a lot of learning, a lot of sharing of resources. And it was epic. One of the ideas I took away, John, was I took away this idea. We had a conversation at lunch about rites of passage. And one of our guys, Ned, brought an idea to the table. He said, I think it was a friend of his who had wrote a book about this. It might have even been called Waymakers. I'm not confident on that. But on his son's 12th birthday, he lined up 12 mentors to have a lunch with him. Take that in any way that you want, 12 days with 12 mentors, right? But this idea of lining them up.
Yeah.
This was the beginning of a great conversation of all the different ways that you could look at a rite of passage. Yeah. And I remember I had a conversation with John Tyson about this, about his program called Primal Path and what he did for his son. For those who don't know, John, he leads a big church in New York. So for you, what's your take on rites of passage? What have you seen develop over the years? What are some ideas in that category? Something that men might be able to take and apply to their sons?
Yeah. So remember, guys, the core needs are love and validation. Love and validation. So it's always got to be in the context of love and bestowing validation. But let's clarify a difference real quick between there are moments of demarcation, a 12th birthday, a 13th birthday, a graduation from high school, a joining the military, there are wedding days. There are moments of demarcation that are very, very significant. And I think we seize those as dads. Like what are the words you're going to say to your son privately the day of his wedding? Like it makes all the difference in the world. What's the gift you're going to bestow on him the day of his wedding? So there's these beautiful sacred moments. But the problem is that the sacred moments are only moments. What we also need are journeys of initiation. So like in the Native American world, it was the vision quest. Mm-hmm. And the young warrior went on a series of challenges of different types. Some of them were emotional challenges. Some of them were physical, right? Some of them were spiritual, but they were all building towards a resiliency in the boy. And so I would just look at there's process and then there's moments of celebration and demarcation. And you need both as you think about, what does it look like to initiate my son or the young men that are in my world, nephews, younger brothers, the opportunities you have. Seize the moments, those sacred moments to speak into their life, but then they also need a process. And what you did this morning is part of the process of initiation. Get on your bike. This is unpredictable. We're just going to go with the wild goose here. And we're going to face challenges and you can handle it, right? Yeah, we could go so long on this, but to add one more quick thing, it's not just always success in the challenges. That doesn't teach a good lesson. If he had crashed his bike in the mud and gotten hurt, what most men lack is a father or someone there to interpret failure. Because when you have someone that helps you interpret failure, you build resiliency. If you don't, then you start feeling like you don't have what it takes.
Wow. Taking a note here, John. Whenever I pause in the podcast, man, that's me writing notes down. I hope that you are too. Man, that's so great. John, I'm conscious of the clock. I'm feeling both a lot of gratitude right now for this conversation and also a deep sadness that I know that it'll come to an end in a few moments. But what's a question that men could or should be asking themselves more often to perhaps connect with their heart or the heart of their families?
Well, oh gosh, again, so many things. Desire is the language of the heart. You want to pay attention to your heart, you pay attention to desire. What are your deep desires? And they change and they morph and they mature over time. But where is desire in your life? Where is desire? And I just mean, man, I want a cheeseburger, but like the deeper stuff. I hate my job. Whoa, pay attention to that. I really wish I was closer to a few guys in my life. Wow. Pay attention to that. Like, desire is crucial. But I would also want to ask a couple other questions. One would be, what am I running from? What am I running from? Because that's the warrior and he's not in the fight. What am I running from? Is it talking to my 16-year-old daughter? What am I running from? And then the really, really deep thing is, what is my spirituality? Like, where you are a whole person, body, soul, and spirit. You got to take care of your body. You got to take care of your soul. What about your spiritual life? Like, where the big questions, where are the big questions? And are you wrestling with them, or are you running from them? So I would want to ask myself those kinds of things.
Wow. Jon, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate this opportunity to connect. I do hope that we have another opportunity in the future to, for a conversation number 2. But this is a killer conversation number 1. This has been a great start, man. So thank you. I realize how valuable time is to you and to your family. And so to share a little bit with us, it says a lot. So thank you. I really honor that. Guys, you got to get the book if you haven't. If you got a book, gift one, as to honor Jon and his path here and the work he's put into this. But the new expanded edition of Wild at Heart is out there. Go find it, pick it up. We'll link to it in the show notes at frontrowdads.com. And as I have done in the past, as my thanks to Jon for being here and to all of you for listening, if you dig this episode, which if you didn't, I strongly encourage you to listen to it again.
Right on. Great to talk to you today, Jon. Thanks for this.